A man spent nearly 40 years preparing for retirement. He skipped vacations, put off buying things he wanted, and before spending even a few $100s, he would think about it for days. His friends called him disciplined, his family called him careful. He believed he was simply preparing for the future. Then, at 61 years old, he died. He left behind more than $146,000 sitting untouched in his savings and investment accounts, money he had spent a lifetime protecting, money he never actually got to enjoy. Most people hear a story like this and think it's just bad luck. But what if it isn't? What if this isn't a rare tragedy, but a financial trap that millions of people quietly fall into without ever realizing it? Because every day, millions of workers postpone living for a retirement they've been told will eventually arrive. They save, they sacrifice, they delay happiness, all because they believe they'll finally have time later. But what if later never comes? And even if it does, what if your healthiest years are already behind you? Today, we're going to explore one of the most controversial ideas in personal finance. Should you spend your entire life preparing for retirement, or is there a smarter way to enjoy both your money and your future? The idea sounds almost irresponsible. After all, we've spent our entire lives hearing the same advice. Work hard, save consistently, delay gratification, retire at 65, then enjoy everything you've earned. It's a plan so familiar that most people never stop to question it. But here's the uncomfortable truth. That plan was never a guarantee. It was always a gamble that you'll stay healthy, a gamble that your career will survive every recession, a gamble that your body will still have the energy to climb mountains, explore new countries, or simply enjoy the freedom you've spent decades buying. And perhaps the biggest gamble of all, that you'll actually live long enough to spend the money you've sacrificed so much to save. Most of us don't notice this trade until it's already happening. In our 20s, we postpone vacations because we're building our careers. In our 30s, we postpone them because we're buying homes and raising children. In our 40s, retirement suddenly feels close enough to justify waiting just a little longer. Then one day, decades have passed, not because anyone forced us to wait, but because waiting became a habit. And that's where this story becomes much bigger than one man's life, because millions of people aren't just saving money, they're saving experiences, saving memories, saving time they assume they'll always have later. The question is, what happens when later doesn't arrive exactly the way you imagined? Of course, there's an obvious problem with this way of thinking. What if you spend your savings now and regret it later? What if you take a year off at 45, only to discover that no company wants to hire you again? What if the market crashes? What if inflation rises faster than your investments? These aren't imaginary fears, they're real risks. And for millions of families, those risks are exactly why they keep postponing life. Because personal finance has always rewarded one personality above all others: the planner, the disciplined saver, the person who says no today so they can say yes decades from now. For years, that's been considered the safest path. Save more, spend less, invest the difference, repeat. Eventually, compound interest does the heavy lifting. It's simple, it's logical, and statistically, it works. But here's the question almost nobody asks. What exactly are you trying to become rich for? Think about that for a moment. Is wealth simply the number displayed in your investment account? Or is wealth the freedom to use your time while you're still healthy enough to enjoy it? Those are two completely different goals. And confusing one for the other may be one of the biggest financial mistakes a person can make. Imagine two people. Both earn the same salary. Both invest consistently. Both make smart financial decisions. By the age of 65, they retire with almost identical portfolios. From the outside, they look equally successful, but their lives couldn't be more different. The first person delayed everything. Every vacation became next year. Every dream became after retirement. Every experience was treated like an unnecessary expense. The second person still invested, still planned for the future. But every few years, they deliberately bought back something that money could never replace: time. A month traveling with their children before those children grew up, a summer caring for an aging parent before it was too late, an entire year stepping away from work after decades of non-stop pressure. Neither of them was irresponsible. Neither of them ignored the future. They simply answered one question differently: when is the right time to start living? At this point, you might be thinking, so should everyone just quit their job for a year? Not so fast. Because that's where this conversation often goes wrong. People hear one inspiring story and assume the lesson is to copy the decision. But successful financial decisions are rarely copied. They're designed. The man who steps away from work without a plan is taking a risk. The man who spends 20 years preparing for that possibility is making a strategy. Those are two completely different things. Here's what most people never realize. Retirement isn't actually an age, it's a financial condition. It simply means your assets can support your lifestyle without depending entirely on your paycheck. The moment you understand that, something changes. You stop asking, when can I retire? And you start asking a much better question. How much freedom can I afford today without sacrificing tomorrow? That's a completely different way of thinking about money. Instead of treating life as one long tunnel with freedom waiting at the end, you begin creating small moments of freedom throughout the journey. Maybe it's not a 2-year break. Maybe it's 6 months after 10 years of work. Maybe it's switching to part-time for a while. Maybe it's taking the trip you've delayed for 15 years. Or maybe it's simply choosing to spend more evenings with your family instead of chasing one more promotion you don't actually need. Because freedom isn't always measured in years. Sometimes it's measured in choices. And the people who feel the richest aren't always the ones with the biggest portfolios. They're often the ones who have the greatest control over their time. Money can always be earned again. Time can't, health can't, youth certainly can't, which is why the real danger isn't spending too much. The real danger is reaching the end of your working life only to discover you've become incredibly wealthy at protecting money and incredibly poor at living your own life. But after thinking about this for weeks, I don't believe retirement is the real issue. I think we've been asking the wrong question all along. The question isn't, should you retire earlier? The real question is, what are you sacrificing in order to retire later? Because every financial decision has a price. Buying a new luxury car has a price. Ignoring your retirement account has a price. But constantly postponing your life has a price too. The problem is, that last price never appears on a bank statement. You don't see it in your investment portfolio. You don't notice it in your monthly budget. You only discover it years later when the opportunities are gone forever. The vacation your parents were healthy enough to enjoy. The road trip your children were still excited to take with you. The energy you once had to climb mountains, learn new skills, or simply wake up without pain. Money can be invested and multiplied. Those moments can't. This is where many lifelong savers quietly fall into a trap. They become so focused on maximizing every dollar that they forget to maximize the life those dollars were supposed to improve. And eventually, saving itself becomes the goal. Not freedom, not happiness, not experiences, just a bigger number. It's surprisingly easy to confuse financial security with financial purpose. One protects your future, the other gives your future something worth protecting. The wealthiest people I've ever studied didn't simply know how to make money. They knew when money had already done its job. There comes a point where another $10,000 changes your account far more than it changes your life. But one unforgettable experience, 1 year with your family, one chance to create memories while everyone is still healthy, can become more valuable than years of additional saving. That doesn't mean you should stop investing. It means your investments should support your life, not replace it. The man at the beginning of this story wasn't poor. He wasn't reckless. He did exactly what society told him to do. Work hard, save relentlessly, wait patiently. The tragedy wasn't that he failed. The tragedy was that he succeeded at a plan that assumed tomorrow was guaranteed. None of us knows how much time we have. That's exactly why money should never become the thing that prevents you from living your life. Save for the future, invest consistently, protect your family, but don't make the mistake of treating life like something that begins after retirement, because one day you'll realize that retirement was never the destination. It was only supposed to give you the freedom to live. And if you're lucky enough to have that freedom today, even in small moments, don't be afraid to use it. After all, the richest life isn't the one with the biggest bank account. It's the one where your money gives you memories instead of becoming one.